that you have been practicing the oval that begins with the down curve, because today you're going to learn 4 more letters that begin in this way. The first letter is the letter D. Let's take a look at it. It begins at the midline, curves back and down to the baseline, then up to the midline and closes, continues up to partway between the midline and the headline with a slant, then slants back down to the baseline, and then an under curve to the midline for the finish. Curve back around and up, continue up, slant, under curve. Watch as I make the letter D on the board. Beginning at the midline, it curves back and down to the baseline, then comes back up to the midline and closes, continue up to partway between the midline and the headline with a slant, retrace it as you come back down to the baseline, and an under curve to the midline for the finish. Hold your pencils in the air and make the letter D as I trace this one. Ready? Begin. Curve back and down. Now come back up and close. Continue up with a slant, then slant back down and under curve for the finish. Check your writing position. Make sure you're sitting correctly and holding your paper and pencil correctly. Put your pencil on the midline and let's write the letter D. Ready? Curve back and down to the baseline. Come up to the midline and close. Continue up with a slant. Now come back down to the baseline with a slant, then an under curve to the midline for the finish. We can do the letter D to the count of 2. Watch as I do that. The first part, curving back and down and up to part way between the midline and the headline is 1. Then as we curve back down with a slant and the under curve, that is 2. Put your pencil at the midline and I will count for you as you write the letter D. Ready? 1, 2. Now watch as this letter is used in the word desk. First the letter D, then the letter E, the letter S, and the letter K. Desk. Now watch as I write the word desk on the board. Beginning with the letter D at the midline, curving back and down to the baseline, close, slant up, then retrace the slant down. Now the letter E, under curve, loop, slant. The letter S, under curve, retrace, curve back and tie. And the letter K, under curve. Now notice this is taller than the letter D. Slant, over curve, around, slant, and the under curve for the finish. Hold your pencil in the air and let's trace the word desk. Ready? Begin. Curve back and down, come up and close, continue up with a slant, then slant to the baseline. Now the E, under curve, loop, slant, the S, under curve, retrace, curve back, around and tie. Now for the K, under curve, up tall, loop, slant. Now retrace here with an over curve, around, slant, and finish. Put your pencil at the midline and let's write the word desk. Ready? Write. Curve back and down, up and close, continue up. Now retrace your slant. Now for the E, under curve, loop, slant, the S, under curve, retrace, curve back around and tie. Now up for the K, under curve, clear up to the headline, loop, and slant. Retrace as you come up with your over curve to the midline, around, slant, under curve for the finish. Look at yours and look at mine. Check to see that you spaced your letters correctly and that the D is not as tall as the letter K. The next letter that you're going to learn is the letter C. Let's look at it. It begins at the midline with a touch down, retrace to the midline, and then a curve back and around and finish. Look at it again. Touch down, curve back around, and finish. Watch as I make the letter C for you. Beginning at the midline with a little touch down or a little dot. Then we're going to retrace slightly and curve back and around to the midline, and then come down to the baseline and up to the midline for the finish. Hold your pencil in the air and make the letter C as I trace this. Ready? Begin. Touch down, retrace, curve back and around. Put your pencils at the midline and let's write the letter C. Ready? Begin. Touch down, retrace, curve back and around. We can do the letter C to the count of 2. Watch as I do that. The little touch down is 1, and then when we begin the retrace and the curving back around and down, that is the 2. Put your pencil at the midline and I'll count for you as you make the C. Ready? 1, 2. Look at yours, look at mine. Check to see that you touched the midline and the baseline and that you came back up to the midline for the finish. Now watch as the letter C is used in the word cocoa. First the C, then the O, another one of our letters, the C again, and then the O again, and the letter A. Cocoa. I want you to practice cocoa for your next lesson, and now let's take a look at the next letter you're going to learn, the letter G. It begins at the midline, curves back and down to the baseline, comes up to the midline to close, slants to the descender, and then loops over, closing at the baseline, continuing up to the midline with an over curve for the finish. Let's look at it again. Curves back and down, then up, slant, loop over, close, and finish. Watch as I make this letter on the board. Beginning at the midline, curving back and down to the baseline, comes up and closes, then a slant to the descender, an over curve, closing at the baseline and finishing at the midline. Hold your pencils in the air and make the letter G as I trace this one. Ready? Begin. Curve back and down, continue up and close, slant and over curve. Put your pencils at the midline and make the letter G. Ready? Right. Curve back and down, come up and close, slant to the descender, now loop over, close at the baseline, finish at the midline with an over curve. We can do the letter G to the count of 3. Watch as I do that. The first part of the letter is number 1. As soon as we close it, then when we start our slant, that would be number 2. And then the looping over is number 3. Put your pencil at the midline, and I'll count for you as you make your second G. Ready? Begin. 1, 2, 3. Check yours. Look at mine. Check to see if you started at the midline, that you came down to the baseline, that the slant comes clear down to the descender, that you closed at the baseline and finished at the midline. Now watch as the letter G is used in the word go. First the letter G. Now notice how it's connected to the letter O with that over curve, and then the swing out for the finish. I want you to practice the word go for your next lesson. This time you're going to see the letter G used at the end of the word in the word dog. First we have the letter D, then the O, and notice how we're going to connect the O with the letter G. Dog. The last letter you're going to learn in today's lesson is the letter Q. Let's take a look at it. The letter Q begins at the midline and curves back and down, comes up to the midline and closes, then a slant to the descender. This time we loop forward and tie at the baseline and an undercurve to the midline for the finish. Let's look at the letter Q again. Curving back and down, close, slant, loop forward, tie, undercurve. Watch as I make the letter Q for you. Beginning at the midline, curving back and down, coming up and closing, slant to the descender, this time loop forward and tie at the baseline, undercurve to the midline for the finish. Hold your pencil in the air and write the letter Q as I trace this one. Ready? Write. Curve back and down, come up and close, slant to the descender, loop forward and tie at the baseline, undercurve to the midline for the finish. Now try the letter Q on your paper. Put your pencil at the midline. Begin. Curve back and down, come up and close, slant to the descender, loop forward, tie at the baseline, undercurve to the midline for the finish. We can do the letter Q to the count of 4. Watch as I do that. Beginning at the midline, the curving back down and up and closing is 1. The slant is 2. The loop forward and tie is 3. And the undercurve to the midline is 4. Put your pencil at the midline and I will count for you as you make the letter Q. Ready? Begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'd like for you to watch as this letter is used in the word quick. First the letter Q. Notice how nicely it connects to the letter U with the undercurve. Then the letter I. Another new letter for today, the C. And ending with the letter K. And dot the I. I would like for you to practice the words Coco, go, dog, and quick for your next lesson.